So for those that want to work on the paintball edition of the FGC9, let's say, so the FGC68, I'm working on an update currently. It should be not a big update, but it is mainly that I gonna replace a part right here. Normally I would use a 3D printed cap with an O-ring and a bolt to seal off, let's say, the other side of the regulator. But it is a lot smarter, of course, to do this with the regulator end cap. That's normally in the regulator before you install your remote line adapter. But I've not seen that thing for years, as I've totally forgotten about it. But somebody in the Discord group mentioned that to me, and I was like, yeah, of course, it's a lot smarter. And with my later testing, I've seen that 3D printed materials tend to leak, so it's not a smart idea to try using a cap to close it that's 3D printed. So that will be modeled, and hopefully that will be an update that is just one half you need to reprint if you want to apply this update for old users, let's say. But in case you don't have any issues, then you might as well use it. For me it worked fine to use the 3D printed cap, but I can imagine that this new thing makes the installation a lot easier and probably more solid, let's say. Then there's also a thing that I'm going to look at, air in stock option. This will be done, in my case, that I will be given a try is the one from MCS. So that block they make for their TPX, that you can just mount that on a rail on the back, and then you can just install your air tank, things like that, or remote in stock with a remote option. If you're going to go with remote in a stock option, I would think it's better to still use this setup because it's a lot cheaper and the build's already not that cheap to begin with. Besides that, it should be everything stay the same. It's only that I might take a look again at the trigger system, and I might improve that a little bit. If I cannot really improve it, then I will just leave it as is, because in my memory at least it worked fine. So, and I tried in the past to improve it, but it made it only worse, so I probably leave it alone. But it might be updated, so that's why if you are not sure yet, if you want to build one, it's probably better to wait. Also for the reason that I'm working on manual, so I will treat it the same as with the Airsoft project. So there will be a lot of manuals you can read through with a lot of information, instead of the long-winded videos that I tend to make. So it's faster to look something back up in the manual and then apply it, or just read the manual and then do it without even watching the videos ever, because it's easier for me to update the manual than a video. For just one of the tiny thing that changed, I'm not gonna record an entire video again from more than an hour for me to film. But I will also look if, and there's a really big if I can make a P68 edition. So what makes this one different, it's a lot lower than the FGC68. So in principle it should not be an issue to take TPX internals and put it in there, but currently how I've orientated them, it's too tall basically. It's just sitting a little bit too high over here, sticking out. A really dirty way of doing it is then making bulges over there, so it kinda is constructionally still fine, but then you cannot use the Picatinny wheel at the back. Another way, of course, is doing it, turning the TPX internals in original position, let's say. Then it should fit, but then I believe to remember in the past, then you will run a little bit into the lower area as an issue, let's say. So we will see. And also the time I cannot say about it, because also for the updates I just mentioned, because I was first thinking I just make the manuals and apply a little bit updates here and there. Also for the trigger spring, compression spring version, and a little bit of an update so they work in all the lowers. small things like that, but there's a lot of things already starting to delay things. I have to wait for 3D print materials. The manuals making takes a long time like usual, but again now quite a long time. Having to wait for the new parts and buying some test parts to make sure that it works, things like that. It will be some time before that's all developed. So yeah, it will not be in a few weeks of anything like that, but it will be hopefully end this year, should be ready. For the P68 I cannot say much about that. That really depends if it can even be done, how fast my tries work, let's say, with orientating things. I try to keep it, at least I hope, that I can make the lower universal from the 6.8 to this one, but if I have to turn the internals, that would not be possible, because then it needs to go in the lower as well, and then it will no longer be universal. So that is a thing, but I try to do it in a way that I can kind of get away with it, so maybe not turn it all the way down, but then we'll see how it goes. There's also the thing with the MCS thing, maybe it doesn't work. A note on that as well, with the air-through stock. There was somebody in my Discord that worked on an air-through stock, but more with, let's say, more homemade, DIY, self-made thing with macro fittings, and with some macro fittings over here, and then an ASA. The thing why I opted for the MCS one, because it's a little bit more easy for me to model a thing for, and know if somebody else buys that it also will work, because macro line fittings are not always the same length. You got the ASAs you need to hunt down, it's not always that easy to find that same one, and things like that. And now currently at least MCS make that block. It's quite pricey, especially in Europe, but at least then you know it fits on there and it works. It's a little bit of a bigger block that can grip on a Picatinny rail. Hopefully that is a bit stronger than an ASA, let's say from an A5 or stuff like that, Tipman A5, and putting it on there. And if you add all those parts up, and you need to buy that from sometimes different stores because they don't have things in stock anymore, it's quite time consuming, and also then you have multiple shipping costs, things like that, and it will drive the price up as well. So if you want to go fancy with the air-through in stock, I opted for, let's say, the more pricey option, but more simple, that you have to buy only one part and then you're done. But I will ask the guy if it's fine to show what he did, because what he did was quite cool. And if you are up to modifying your step valve in the back, then of course go that route. But do keep in mind, and it's probably also the case with the MCS one, if you install a tank on there, it's probably best to have an on and off slide on there, because you don't want to have pressurized air on that ASA and twist that air tank in there, put a lot of stress on the back part, 3D printed. It will probably snap. You don't want to do that. So it's either a normal air tank and shoot it totally empty, then remove it, or use an on and off. It's probably those things you want to do. You don't want to, because if you're paintballing, you know what I'm talking about. When you don't have an on and off on your marker, it's really hard to twist those tanks off, and you cannot put that much stress on this system. It's just asking for trouble. Maybe you get away 1 or 2 times with it, but there will be a day that it's just too much and then it cracks and then you're stuck. So you don't want to do that. Also, Mac compatibility wise, I'm not gonna expand it more than it already is. I find that this is already quite a lot of options that you get to play with. and these are kind of the most common magazines anyways nowadays. So I think that should be fine. You got enough options to play with. So that's why I leave it like that, because it's only more work to make sure it's fine, and every time when there's a new edition it might be need to be checked if it's still compatible. So there's a lot of maintenance on my part that I don't really want to do. Yeah, I keep it with that for now. At least you know there's something in the works for the project. Again, it has been quiet for quite some time. I was thinking it was kind of done, but looking back at how I do the airsoft project now with the manual, and I was looking back at this one and think, oh man, it's so poorly explained how everything works and how it needs to be done. It's crazy. So I will be already putting a link below in this video that will go and show you the Google Drive folder with the parts and things like that. Do keep in mind, because now the update is still in progress, things might change. The PDFs that are already released might also get some updates on them, but in case you're really curious, you can already take a look at it, or maybe when you watch this video later then. So a stand like this is also something that I want to work on for the paintball version of the project. So it will be, at least the idea is that you then get different magazines that you can install on this board, or you take a plate yourself and then drill it in there in that 3D printed magazine, and then you can just install your replica marker on there. But yeah, that's it, and see you guys next time.